Welcome to Future Campus. I'm Tim Winkler, and today we have the privilege of spending 5 minutes with Swinburne Vice-Chancellor, Professor Pascale Cuesta. Pascale, good morning.
Good morning, Tim. Good to be with you.
Now, you took the helm at Swinburne in 2020, and after 3 years in the job, where are you at? Are you buckling in? Are you ready to jump? Or are you about to reinvent the place?
Oh, well, none of the above. I think the reinvention piece really occurred in 2020, and then we launched our new strategic plan, which was kind of co-created with all the staff involved in a big discussion that I called Swinburne Unlimited. And now we're on our way. We've got our 4 moonshots, and we're making real progress in order to achieve them.
How hard is it to keep momentum? 3 years in, it's every day you have to get up and be the vice chancellor. You don't have the privilege of going along and having a coffee and sitting in the background.
Yeah, I don't think it's about waking up in the morning thinking you're the vice chancellor. It's more about the privilege of being part of this fantastic enterprise where a whole bunch of people, really smart people, really well-intentioned people, really positive people need to kind of get together around big things that they can do together that they probably could not do if they were doing trying it on their own. So it's about the kind of creating the collective ambition and making sure that everybody keeps their eyes on the prize. So there's an unlimited universe of things we could do. But at Swinburne, we've decided to do a few and to do them extraordinarily well. And so that's kind of the imperative of every day, is to not be distracted and keep on strategy.
About the moonshots is part of your, obviously your discipline is marketing, and through your career that's come in handy, no doubt. Is the moonshots in some ways part of that? I'm not saying it's just marketing, but it's a great name and it's a great concept.
Well, I mean, it comes from the fact that we're extraordinarily good when it comes to astrophysics and everything to do with space. But it's also trying to recapture that sense of ambition and optimism. It's not because it's hard that we shouldn't try. And we know that we can achieve extraordinary things if we all kind of work together. So the moonshots was actually a way to also crystallize the 4 things that were really important to us. And it has worked by and large, because I don't think you have anybody at Swinburne that wouldn't be able to tell you what our 4 moonshots are. And they're really equally balanced between the education piece, between the research and industry engagement piece, but also they are a rallying code for the people who are in the vocational sector and the higher education sector. And the thing that's very important in that strategy is that we do this as one Swinburne. So research is not going to win if teaching is losing. Vet is not going to win if higher education is losing. We win together. We get to the moon together on this one-star ship called Swinburne. Or we don't. And so people are really, I think, vested in that thing because they can see how it speaks to them.
If you get to the moon, what then? Is it Mars? Where do you go after that?
So it's not if, it's definitely when, and the time is 2025. So that's absolutely, there's no question of changing the timeline or do anything. I mean, there could be something extraordinary happening in the Accord that actually takes the fuel of our rocket. Or puts a booster on the rocket and makes us go faster. But, just like Elon Musk wants a base on moon to slingshot to Mars, that's the idea. Once we are on the moon, we will know exactly where it is that we want to go next. And there will always be the need for us to reassess at that point because, the whole universe would have pivoted a few degrees and we will need to kind of actually embrace what the next 10 years will bring, knowing that most of the parameters will have changed by then.
Well, let's switch to a bit about you. When you were a child in France, what did you dream of becoming? What was your childhood like?
Well, the one thing I can tell you is that I certainly did not grow up thinking I would be a vice chancellor first, because if anybody tell you they wanted to be a vice chancellor when they were a child, they're lying. Nobody even knows what a vice chancellor is. And even after they grow up, they're not quite sure. So, but what I did have from a very early stage is the conviction that I would travel a lot and live abroad. So I've always been kind of an explorer in that sense. From the age of 11, I would go to England every year. I would really immerse myself in the English language. And I've probably decided when I was 12 or 13 that I would live in a country where English is spoken. I'll let you decide whether English is spoken or not in Australia. But this is kind of what took me first to the United States, then to New Zealand, and then finally to Australia. It's my belief that actually we are all global citizens, and it's a small planet, and we all are responsible for its future and its people.
those explorer boots on, is it difficult for you to stay in one place? You've been in Australia for a considerable period of time. You have to find your vicarious adventure somewhere else?
Oh, not really, because pre-COVID, at least, you could always kind of go and explore. And certainly, being in the university system means you are always going to be very globally connected. But I have now been in Australia for something like 32 years. So this is very much home in that sense. It takes me a few days before I can recover my French when I go to France. And it certainly takes me quite a few weeks to recover any Spanish at all when I go to South America. But the sense of being comfortable in other places is really strong. I've got two daughters whom I adopted from India. We are the kind of the epitome of the global family because I adopted them here. I adopted them in France. They speak French. They speak English, and they probably don't feel particularly Indian, even though they absolutely look it. So, and that's kind of, I think that's the way of the future, to be honest.
That must be a significant advantage to you in terms of settling into not just geographical environments, but, talking to people from different disciplines, dealing with different situations within your role.
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with the sense of being the foreigner. And I'm comfortable with that. And in my previous institution where I stayed for something like 25 or 26 years, I know that when I was saying things, sometimes people would say, oh, that's completely kind of weird. But what I don't think anybody knew is whether it was weird because I was a woman and there were predominantly men around me, or whether it was because I was from consumer behavior, whereas, the others were from kind of science or humanities, but not from a kind of business discipline. Or indeed because I was French. And it didn't matter in the end because the value of what it is this is what diversity is all about. It doesn't matter whether I think differently because I'm a woman and because I'm French and because I'm a consumer behavior. The main thing is that I think differently and that I'm so built that I don't mind sharing my views. So, some people can be different and then they shut up. And so the diversity is not there, except the token person is sitting there. Whereas I'm very comfortable sharing very unorthodox views, and so far it's worked okay.
Where does that strength come from? That strength of the happiness to share, your willingness to be a comfortable outsider, if you like, in the global sense, an insider, but in the Australian sense.
Yeah, look, I think it comes from that comfort I have of being the foreigner. If you start living abroad, as I did, at the age of 10 or 11, and you kind of figure out at some point that you're not going to get the joke, you're not going to understand every word people say, you're probably not going to understand, trivial references that people make to nursery rhymes. I don't know English nursery rhyme. When I was bringing up my kid, I could not actually recall nursery rhymes in English because I've never had them. So that sense of never having quite all the bits, but still being able to form a total picture, and then to have the confidence to say, well, I'll never know the whole thing, but I'm still going to go forward. I think that's been probably building a particular sense of not arrogance, because I don't think I know the answer, but I don't mind sharing what I think might be helpful. And that's, I think, is useful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge strength to be able to do that. And comfortable to do that. Swinburne and Seek. Now Swinburne forged a partnership with Seek in 2011.
Right.
It's turned into OES. There's a range of other partnerships and so on that Swinburne has been involved in. Is there a chance that the university sector might create spin-offs that maybe consume it or overtake it or become serious competitors?
Well, look, we are in a very dynamic environment. I wouldn't see that. I really think that the joint venture with Seek was 100% Swinburne, right? Instead of doing things on our own, we were first to step into that digital space with the confidence that learning didn't have to be the old model of, the traditional. So there was an innovative streak in doing this. And then a kind of real common sense, which is to say, well, if we're going to do these things, we probably should partner with an industry partner that actually has got digital capability that we probably don't have at this point. And the fact that it was a joint venture and that it had a great commercial success, I reckon that's 100% Swinburne. That's that's a model to emulate. And in fact, if you look at what we're doing in our global strategy in Vietnam, we didn't do the brick and mortar thing that RMIT did. We actually went to find the best tech company we could find, and that's FBT. And then we now have 3 locations where our program is taught, and we teach it in the locations that have been provided by FBT. And our students do their work experience with FBT. And FBT is a really well-known tech company. Swinburne is a very highly praised university because we've had a TV program that we sponsored for the last 20 years there. And so the marriage of Swinburne and FBT makes so much sense to people that it is a great advantage. And so, this is a really innovative way of going about global education, but it is a model that speaks to what Swinburne has done here and is fundamentally dedicated to, which is getting people ready for the future, including the world of work, and not doing it alone, but doing it in partnership with industry. Works perfectly well.
How do you feel about the threat from organizations like, LinkedIn, Google, these giant organizations that are providing, non-accredited micro-credentials, or that, is that going to be the future in terms of getting ready for the world of work?
I think it's going to be part of the future. And to be honest, I think they're filling a gap which the universities quite foolishly left wide open, right? So if the only way you understand education is having people sign up for 3 years and then somehow transporting themselves to a campus, which is, a great adventure when you're 18, but if you're 27, you're kind of grown out of that a bit. So this notion that we have a segmented market and that not everybody is going to be prepared for the commitment, financial, social, and otherwise, that a traditional degree will have. Well, we either get on with a program and start delivering micro-credentials and be kind of flexible in what we do. We either see ourselves as holders of content or coaches of learning. And for Swinburne, we are coaches of learning. And so we would rather work in collaboration with the Google of this world and see how some of the things they do can actually be combined with some of the things we do. But in this instance, we left the field vacant. We insisted on an antiquated model, and then we got really sort of stroppy about it. And so then we got surprised when other people actually responded to market needs faster and better than we did. Well, duh. Yeah, as you say, I'm a consumer behavior person. I'm with the student every time.
What will be fundamentally different about higher education in 2028, do you think? 5 years' time. It's quite a time in with the pace of change at the moment.
Well, there's going to be a fair amount of unbundling, and there's going to be, if you think about the future, for me, the future is infused with tech. So to me, the future of education is ed tech and the value chain, and the fact that maybe we need to skip a couple of stages and imagine what if, all the recruitment was done, with digital masters that can actually really crunch data and maybe some other part of the value chain is also distributed elsewhere. The model which I think is probably at risk is the comprehensive do-it-all university, the behemoth that we have, and maybe there is room in the ecosystem for 1 or 2 of those whales, but as I keep saying, especially in the Victoria area, which is kind of crowded in terms of university, this reef cannot support too many whales, right? 1 or 2 whales maybe, but we need a lot more pilot fish and a lot more agile kind of creatures that are actually going to assist in the diversity of the reef. And we see our role as quite clear. We're a dual sector university, which is a massive advantage at the moment, and we want to scaffold around learners of all description. You don't have to have a high ATAR to be one of our people. You can just become one of our learners through a multiple number of pathways to come in. And then we'll get you ready for a tech-rich future. And we'll do this with VET, we'll do this with micro-credential, we'll do it through Swinburne Edge if you are a full-time worker and you want to kind of become relevant for a tech kind of job in the future. We'll do this with Indigenous students because the digital gap is probably the most important thing at the moment that we can help them overcome. And so wherever technology and people need to work together, we'll be there providing an education pathways. And in our research, we will be world leaders, but in a few things, not in everything. Because if we wanted to be world leaders in everything, then we would want to be a whale. And this reef cannot take any more whales. The most powerful thing I said to staff when I first came in, and this was through a town hall that was online, of course, because we were in stage 4 lockdown. I think the first sentence I said is, we're not going to try to be the University of Melbourne. They will always be better than us at being the University of Melbourne. We are going to be the absolute best at being Swinburne University of Technology, the prototype of the university of the future, not the reflection of the universities of the past. And that's quite empowering for our staff, because we will do that design effort together to fit with the future as we see it.
Fantastic. So to finish off, what do you do in your downtime? Do you get downtime?
Not very much at all. I do indulge in the French Film Festival when it's on. It's a kind of mad period of about 4 weeks where I go to about 4 films every weekend. I love cinema, and I live very near the Queen Victoria Market, so I quite like to go and buy food at the market, and cooking with my partner and walking my dogs are the kind of ways in which I can actually switch off a little bit.
Fantastic. Sounds brilliant. It's a great life. Thanks a lot, Pascale.
Thank you very much, Tim. It's a great life.